Thanks for coming. Let's stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Daly.
Here.
Vice President Headland.
Here.
Trustee Clements.
Here.
Trustee McNall.
Here.
Trustee Parr.
Here. Thank you for coming. Today is our final meeting before the budget vote on May 18th. So we will be doing a public hearing for the adopted Haldane budget for the 2021 to 2022 school year. So at this time, I'd like to open the hearing. If anybody would like to comment, and perhaps while we await the hordes of people to come to the microphone, Dr. Benante, if you have any final
We'll provide just
thoughts
a
that
very
you'd like to share?
broad overview for the public that I'll assume is watching because
Yes.
they're not here this evening.
Yes.
The board is obviously already familiar with these details, so I won't go into them any further, but for any community member who may be watching either right now or later, I would refer them to the information on the district budget that's contained on our website for more detailed information about each phase of the budget development process. Obviously, the board has been a part of that with the administration since January. Given that the board has adopted the budget and the intention of tonight is really to provide information to the community, I think it's most relevant to just refer our community back to that information that's contained on our website, one of which will be, one of the resources will be our overview, which I'll go through right now. The first proposition on the school budget is the levy, and obviously this forms the bulk of what we're presenting to the community. The second proposition pertains to transportation vehicles, and the budget, by law, we're required to present the budget to the community in each of its component parts, administrative, capital, and program. Before I transition to that, perhaps the biggest story in the budget development process this school year was the unanticipated nature of state aid and how state aid may be influenced through the state budget development process, which was impacted by COVID. The good news that came through early April was that we actually realized an increase in state aid where we had been anticipating a potential reduction all along. So that's put us in a good position. So you see the increase to $3.1 million in state aid anticipated for the upcoming school year. And the long-term outlook looks good if what's been said holds true, which is the full restoration or full funding, I should say, of foundation aid, which puts us in a relatively strong position for the next 2 years. Our budget is broken into three component parts: administrative, capital, and program. This slide outlines our actual spending in the preceding years and what we outline or propose to spend into next school year. You'll see the administrative component at $2.8 million, the capital component at $3.6 million, and our program component at $19.4 million. Obviously, the program component is comprised of instructional salaries. It's the bulk and the essence of what we do each year, is what our kids experience in our classrooms each day. So it is the most significant area of spending. For our community, we've outlined our spending within different lines, or consolidated our lines within each component of the budget so that our community could get a sense of our trends in the preceding years, or trends, I should say, over the past few years, and what we're proposing for the upcoming school year. So those figures are listed here. You'll see that our administrative spending is 11% of our total budget. Our spending in capital is 14% of our total budget, and our program is about 75% of our total budget, and that's outlined here. As I mentioned earlier, there's two propositions that will be on the budget, or that folks will vote on. The first is the levy. The second is the vehicle purchase proposition. As I've said in the past, we try to we're maintaining a fleet that we own, and the maintenance of that fleet requires that we purchase new vehicles on a schedule. This is a tax neutral proposition, so we're paying off existing debt at equal rate to what we're taking on. So it does not equate to any additional tax dollars or an increase in tax bill for our community. And we anticipate purchasing 1 school bus and 2 minivans. Now, as we prepare for the vote, we just want our community to be mindful that if the vote were to go down, we do have some options. We can call for a revote, which is a laborious task, but we can do that. Or we can enact a contingency budget. A contingency budget for next school year would necessitate an additional $390,000 in reductions. As the board's aware of, and any community member who goes through and attends a community forum or goes back and looks at our budget development process, we've already made upwards of $900,000 in reductions. I think our board certainly is aware of how difficult that was for the administration, so the prospect of having to make further reductions of $390,000, I think we would be at a point where we would impact the quality of the experiences that our kids are having here each day. I think we've been able to avoid impacting that up to this point. So our hope, obviously, is that the budget will pass and that we've struck a right balance in the development process. All of this information is outlined in more detail in our budget document, which was posted today on the district website. It's also available in hard copy in each of the district buildings, and there's also a copy at the Butterfield Library. Anybody can call the district office. We will make that document available to them, and either Ann or I, but most likely Ann, would be happy to review any questions or concerns that community members would have about specific elements of the line details in that budget. A reminder to community members that we are hosting an in-person vote here at Haldane on May 18th. That's the date of the budget vote. Absentee ballot process applications are available in the district office. And then there's also the Board of Education trustee vote as well. That's attached to that. A few important dates that are coming up. This Thursday, I'll host a virtual community budget forum. Become very used to those, I guess. I won't say I'm good at them yet, but
I'm pretty good at them.
thank you, Jen. Next Wednesday, prior to the PTA meeting, there'll be another budget presentation. That'll be Wednesday morning. So we try to balance one in the evening, one in the morning. Additionally, the PTA has its Meet the Candidates event scheduled for next Tuesday at 7 p.m. And I'll also be meeting with our community partners, I believe it's this Friday, if I'm not mistaken, to meet with our supporting organizations and to share details related to the budget, also some additional information that they can utilize to inform their respective groups about the budget for this year. The budget vote is going to be held in the cafeteria this year. I just want to make note of that. It's typically held right adjacent the first classroom as you walk in out of the Bell parking lot. But just with respect to social distancing guidelines and trying to maintain the safest standards or health standards in our schools, we felt that it would be more appropriate to have the vote actually occur in the cafeteria. However, if anyone is handicapped or needs to use the elevator to come down, we would still encourage those folks to come in through the Bell lot. We'll have signage related to that, and we'll be able to see them down to the elevator so that they can get down to the cafeteria to vote. With that, I think I'll answer any questions that the community has. Assuming Mayor Morandi doesn't have any questions about our budget, I think we can close the hearing, Jen.
Okay. Well, thank you for your attention, public, and thank you once again to Ann Dinio and Dr. Benante for their tireless work on what was a very difficult budget season. And we will close the public hearing. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to just read through a few important dates, and I know Dr. Benante mentioned them, but I'll mention them again because they're so super important. So our annual district meeting, our budget vote, and our trustee vote will all be held on Tuesday, May 18th. And as Dr. Benante said, the voting happens in the cafeteria, and the board will be meeting here as usual. And our meeting will be a little bit later. We have it scheduled at 7:30. So we can go through our business, and then 9 o'clock the polls close, and we all anxiously wait for the results. And the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So vote before you go to work if you can. And we will be announcing the results of the vote that evening, Tuesday, May 18th. Voter registration will be held on Tuesday, May 13th from 4 to 8 in the lobby of the elementary school, middle school building for anyone who is not currently registered. And anybody who wants to get an absentee ballot, as Dr. Benante said, we will be voting in person, but there's also the option for absentee ballot voting. And there is now a application for the COVID transmission is a legitimate reason for an absentee ballot. So anybody who is interested in getting an absentee ballot, they can go to the district office or email Catherine Platt at cplatt@haldaneschool.org to receive that. But those applications must be received by mail or in person by 2 o'clock on May 11th. So that is next Tuesday. No. Is that next Tuesday? Next Tuesday.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got a week. Okay, so that's a lot of information. I hope I got everything.
Meet the candidates again. Is that here?
It's a virtual.
It's
Meet
virtual.
It's a virtual meet.
And it's May 11th.
That's also May 11th. Yeah.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
And we'll get a link.
Correct. Our PTA, I believe, has information up on their website with the Zoom meeting link information. It just was not available at the time we printed this or created this to send in our communication.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, and we have 3 candidates for 2 trustee seats.
Correct.
And we thank those 3 people, Mark Daisley, Maggie Valentine, and John Hedlund, in advance for raising their hand to serve on the board. Okay, I think that's it. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Benante, and I would like to make note for everybody that this doesn't say COVID-19 update anymore.
not.
Because Dr. Benante is moving away from it, and we are moving into regular superintendent update status, which is
Yes.
exciting. Okay, so Dr. Benante.
I think, as you noted, Jen, it's a very busy time, and part of that busyness is surrounded towards making important transitions on our campus in light of the pandemic, one of which, though, is planning for our end-of-year events. So I know I mentioned this last time, but wanted to make sure the board and the community was informed that we're trying to create an end-of-year experience, which includes some of those culminating events that we have all come to appreciate in celebration of our students and their efforts, and more information will be coming home on those shortly. The planning that's related to such events is a little more detailed and nuanced than typical, so I think everyone understands that, but we're still proceeding with that in mind, and we look forward to it. Everything from moving up ceremonies to prom to graduation, and even some musical events as well to showcase our students' work in the arts next week, actually, so we're looking forward to that. I had the opportunity to meet with a group of our educators as well as our full administrative team to continue work related to our coherence plan. And our coherence plan, when we talk about essential skills and dispositions, it requires a high level of intention for how we create our curriculum and write our curriculum for our students. That really is what guides our teachers' work with our kids in their lesson planning, and guides is the essence of what our students come to experience in each respective content area. And the work gets at the essence of who we are as a school district and who we or what we aspire to be. and really hits at what's the purpose of schooling? What's the purpose of our kids' experience here over their up to 13-year experience with us? I'm excited that we're in a position to engage with our faculty in such a way. We were at the Taconic Outdoor Education Center, who were gracious hosts for us. We were the first school group to have the opportunity to use their facility, which has been renovated. It's beautiful. We're going to go there more. But it was a wonderful venue. And the goal, I think that we're arriving at and that our teachers are beginning to appreciate and understand is for our students to leave school to be able to improve their lives, the lives of their community members, and our society based on the experiences that prepare them to be effective, to be thoughtful, and to be engaged adults. And we want to see our academic content, knowledge, and skills, which at times can be very discrete things, but it's important to see them as enablers of critical thinking, problem solving, and communication. So that's our work, and we're beginning to do some great planning around that. I shared some resources with the board, some early work related to this as part of my evaluation, but I'm excited again that we're in a position to begin to really lean into that in a way where we can even be physically together in a room and talk through it. So I was really excited to have that opportunity with a group of our teachers. Lastly, as the board's aware, but I want our community to be aware that we continue to make good progress on identifying our next athletic director and dean of students. We were meeting with finalists this evening prior to our board meeting. We had two great candidates who really who have a lot to offer to our school community. I just want to thank, we had teachers, coaches, parents, students, administrators, board members who are all part of this process. Our candidates go through a pretty rigorous process, and I think we're at a good place here, and we're excited at the prospect of filling that position. And again, great thanks to both Dave Goddard and Eric Romanino, who we've been fortunate to have their support over the course of the school year in a very dynamic time in athletics. And Eric has provided a level of support in the dean role as well. We're really appreciative of our time with them, and I look forward to having an announcement for the community on that position, hopefully sometime next week. Again, coordinating with the board on the formal recommendation. So that concludes my remarks, Jen, and I know we have a special presentation, and I'll pause in case there's any questions from our board before we get to our presentation.
I think we're good.
Great. So I'd like to welcome up to the podium Mayor Dave Morandi. As you all know, as former Haldane Board of Education member, Dave has been working with the village to examine municipal parking options in the village. And I've had the pleasure of being here on the weekends sometimes, and as you know, parking in our our community is a desirable spot, a desirable location for many folks to come to and engage with our shops on Main Street or the outdoors, but it does present some obstacles for us in terms of parking. So Dave and the Villages Committee work on this, has worked on this over some time. Dave's going to inform us of that. And I think there's some options here for us to consider potentially for use of district property that Dave's going to speak to. And there's a lot of detail to this, and I just want to set this up. I think for tonight, what I'm looking for from the board, that if, based on Mayor Morandi's presentation, if the board would like the administration to continue to pursue how it could utilize some of our district property to make available to municipal parking, I'm just looking for the thumbs up on that or not. From there, because there's so much detail to it, what I would recommend is that we get a group of individuals, potentially a board member, obviously Tim, from a facilities perspective, myself, and then a parent, a coach, people who come to interface with this space that we're going to talk about this evening, get them together to perhaps have a separate time with Dave and his committee to talk about some of those details. So I think for tonight, Dave's going to provide a broad overview. It'd be best just to know from the board based on this, one, for Dave to answer your questions that you may have, but for me just to know if you want us to pursue investigating this further. We don't have to arrive at any decision tonight, then we can bring that detailed information back to the board. I think that'll just help keep this in manageable chunks for us because we know it's a big topic in the community.
Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. First, I'd like to thank you all for hanging in there for the last year. I can imagine how tough it's been dealing with parents on both sides and people wanting it and not wanting it. So I don't envy your position, although I've been there, but not the way you guys have had to deal with. So thank you all for your time and your hard work. And hopefully there is light at the tunnel and get through this year and start things up and get back to whatever normal is next year. So thank you so much. Just a quick note, I was just talking to Ann earlier before, and so a little flashbacks. I think it was like 14 years ago that I first met Ann and Mark Benante, at the time the superintendent, and I interviewed her for the job and hired her. And I have to say, in retrospect, and everything that I've gone through is probably the best hire, one of the best hires I've ever made. Hopefully you agree with that. She really was an incredible resource at the time. So I did have a good time for 10 years or more on the school board, and had good people working with, and I think we brought things, advanced things, like a lot of improvements to the building and the structure, and I think I heard you guys are talking boilers again, which was a flashback on that one. So anyway, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. Although there's a number of slides, first of all, I apologize for not getting this information to you earlier. I put this together Sunday and had to have people kind of check it late last night and early this morning to get it together, so I do apologize. Although there's a number of slides, we can go through them quickly. The beginning of them are just basically an overview of what we're doing on the committee, just for your information, and so I won't get into that too much. The first, this is the parking plan which the village has, and I won't go through every point, but basically what we're trying to do is kind of address all the issues. We're trying to, well, and probably that's a challenge, and one thing leads to the other, as you know. But, we're trying to help residents with their parking on the streets, because they are our constituents, and so we're trying to alleviate some of the problems on the side streets. In doing so, we also want to support the Main Street merchants, and so we're trying to find places for them where they can park, and also trying to monetize and find places for the visitors. Last year with COVID, up to last year, things just kept getting progressively more and more people. So COVID just put us over the top last year. And as you know, if you live in the village, it was pretty insane, to say the least. I think a lot of people just stay home and would rather not come out, which, doesn't really feel good if it's your village. So we're trying to do, and have looked at a number of things. And so our plan, is there to implement residential parking in the parking district. There was a law which the state allows us to implement parking district, which is 80% for the residents and 20% has to be set aside for visitors. And so it's only in 11 streets in the districts below 9D, basically. There's one already set up below the river, but in a different fashion. So we're trying to do that, which isn't the easiest thing to do, but we're almost there. We're talking about metering parking on Main Street. One of the problems is turning over parking, and with hikers coming into the area, a lot of people are on side streets now for, basically unloading in the morning, going hiking, and not coming back till the end of the day, which causes several problems for residents not having parking, and then also people have no parking to go shopping on Main Street. So what we're trying to do is trying to have a turnover and by metering parking. Next is to collaborate with you guys, possibly. We're looking into that, as Dr. Phyllis said, and so that's one option. There's space there that gets filled every weekend, and there's a photo at the end that shows that. Also, we talked to Metro North about, they've offered us free parking, and we're almost there. We have to get the contract together, but they've agreed to allow us to use the far end of their parking lot in the village, which, although it's free, no one knows about it, and they never allowed us to put signage up. So they agreed to allow us to do that, so we can put some signage directing people there for like overflow, and maybe people that want to go hiking can park down there, and and not take up parking in the village. And finally, establish areas for employers. I mentioned that before, and employees, like in some of the, we have some spaces that we're looking into an area by our highway garage that we might try to like pave or have that for parking. There's Kemble Avenue and a couple of streets on the sides where they're not used that much that maybe the employees can park there and then and alleviate some of the parking on Main Street and side streets. You'd be amazed how many employees there are at one time, and they get there early and they park there, and then there's no parking for anyone else. So that's another thing we're looking at. The impacts in the village, there's the, let's see, limited number of street parking spaces. I'm having not the greatest time seeing this increase in numbers of vehicles and families. As you know, like there's people that used to have one car. The streets were built probably for no cars. Now there's one car, then there's two people working now, and then their sons or daughters are sticking around a little longer, and then there's another car. So it's tough to keep up with that. So that's one of the causes. Main Street employees, like as I mentioned, they take up a lot of spaces. Visitors on the Main Street and the riverfront are taking up, a lot of spaces. Visitors to the local hiking trails, that's probably one of the biggest impacts that we've seen lately, and probably who uses your lot and has used the lots that we have available for it. And the limited number of resources for municipal lots, we really don't have any property. There's, we have a few spots that we're going to, try to use. Last year I did an impromptu parking, kind of a parking lot down on the field, and charged $20 per parker, per vehicle, and we just filled the place, and it was, I think we made $3,000 we grossed in one day. So money can be made, and people are willing to, spend $20 or whatever for a day. So that's another reason why we're going. So our goals are to relieve parking, increase parking space turnover, strategically locate and price longer-term parking, expand available parking, and monetize the parking. Why Haldane and Cold Spring? This is for Haldane. I think it would be it would be added revenue. I think the bottom line of this is added revenue at really little work, and the village is willing to put that work in and partner with you. So first is added revenue, shared maintenance, and we can talk about that. A lot of things I've run by Dr. Benante, and but nothing's cast in stone. Whether we would share parking maintenance or the maintenance of the lot, or the village would take care of that, and that can all be worked out. But so there's shared maintenance of that lot and upkeep. Parking enforcement by the village of Cold Spring. If we have metered parking there, then we'd be able to enforce it. The police can come by. We can deal with people that are there for long terms, or make sure people are the turnover is there. And metering to coordinate, implement, and manage and management by the village of Cold Spring. So we're working with Park Mobile, and we're going to be working with an app metering system, so we can just include this into it. So that's part of the benefit. Benefits for the village is we'd have enhanced control, and we'd also it would add revenue for us also. The parking lot proposal. We would coordinate and install all of the necessary signage. Park Mobile supplies metered parking signs for free, so they do that. We'd have to install them. All of their signage that we want to add, like no parking or parking reserved for the tennis court or whatever, that would be, the village would take that on and purchase those signs and install them. Implement the Parking Mobile app, metered parking by Park Mobile. Maintain or share maintenance of the lot, coordinate the use of the lot with the Haldane events calendar. I think that would be the most important thing for you guys, during the school year. Any events, we would have to coordinate with you guys and make sure we knew your calendar. The way the app works and the way the metering works, you can change it daily if you want. You can have no metering, you do whatever. So again, if we coordinate that with you, we have police enforcement, we can have signs that are free on event days. And there's some like common sense things. If you guys having a softball practices there, there'd be no metered parking and whatever. So there are a few things that I think would be common sense that we don't actually have to, put that, we can put them in writing, or I think it would be a given that, the baseball coach, softball coach isn't going to get a ticket or towed away or something. Shared parking revenue with the Haldane. Again, that's, to be determined on what we think is an even split or whatever we can come up with there, but there definitely be the shared revenue. And managed parking revenue and accounting. We would take care of all the accounting and work with Park Mobile, whatever they send us, we could disseminate and split for what Haldane is to show records for that. What they can also do with Park Mobile is they have zones set up. So each place can be a zone. If we had Mayor's Park could be a zone, Main Street can be a zone, Haldane can be a zone, and all of that information is kept in their records, in which we can see how much money is made there, turnover, number of cars, whatever. So we would take care of that end of it, and I think that's one of the big benefits. This is the Route 9 lot, as best I could diagram it for you. There's approximately 34 spaces there, which is very similar to the village's municipal lot. So the amounts that we make there, the amounts that are made there, hopefully will be the same, or similar at the Haldane lot. Although probably more people are using the municipal lot than would use ours during the week and kind of towards nights. But weekends, I don't see that there would be any difference. We'd have 2 spaces at the end. We'd leave for the tennis court, reserved for that. Then there's the drive going for the shed, which we'd leave a space open for that. And on the south end near Northern Avenue, we would have to leave some spaces there for visibility for drivers coming out. So that's a safety issue. So this is the tennis court side. This is directly across the crosswalk coming across. And the shed, there'd be 2 signs there, and this would be open. So the lot would start somewhere in here and going south. These are the Park Mobile signs, and they can either be placed on the posts that are there, and they're probably, we're going to be meeting with the representative from Park Mobile again, and we can go over this, but I think that'd be like every 4 spaces, so they wouldn't be, we don't want to sign everything to death, and, that's something I don't care to do, and I don't think anyone wants to visually see or just see signs all over the place. So I think we could do that kind of subtly, and it'd be like every 3 or 4 spaces. This is a potential sign that we can have just so that people know that it's metered. They can't say that, oh, I didn't see a sign or something. And it would give the hours and whatever information we want to put on it. So we can come up with different signs, or this is one possibility that we can have there, and showing that there's a partnership between the village and the school. This is the Park Mobile sign. So they supply all the technology needed to meter and manage the parking. So basically, they do everything. We show them where we want the parking. We set up the zones. They give us the signs. They walk through the village and tell us where the signs should go or how many signs there are. And that's basically it. And then we get reports, and I'll get to the payment part of it in a second. Let's see, what do we have? The metered areas are set up in the zones, so 9D parking would be its own zone, and so we can, separate that from everything else easily. Payments can be made by either using a smartphone or also texting. We at first thought it was just going to be smartphone, and some people still don't have that technology. I have a clamshell in my pocket, and so we have at least texting. We didn't want to get in. The only other options are if you had kiosks up and down Main, but the number of kiosks you'd need because of the way we're set up, they're fairly expensive. I mean, I think they're at least $10,000 or $12,000 each, and the numbers that we'd have would be, cost prohibitive. So we didn't go that way, and we didn't want to use coins or paper money. We tried that at the lots. It just turns into a headache, and most people are moving away from it. So the hours, days, and the rates can be changed easily, as I mentioned. So the way it works, if someone, basically whatever we set the fees at, and you can set the fees whatever you want, any times of days can be different, weekends or any time of day, like I said. And so a person using the smartphone would, go to the app and it would tell them what the rates are. And so, for example, if the rate is $3 for the transaction, someone goes to park, it's $3 an hour, they tack on 35 cents to the customer, person that's parking. And then they also charge, for the credit card fee, they charge between 3 and 5%. In this example, I use 5%. And they also charge the village or Haldane, whoever, 15 cents per transaction. So out of $3, we would see $2.70 that we would share. This is the lot last Sunday at 11 a.m. So people are here and they're hiking and they're going to be here. And it's just starting and weather's getting nice. So I guarantee you they will be full from here on in. And in the fall, it'll be hectic. Final thoughts, the visitors are using the lots, and it's of little benefit to the village and pretty much no benefit to Haldane if they're parking on your lots. Besides, you have to maintain it, probably more because of more use. Based on the village's experience with metered parking at the municipal lot on Fair Street, we'd anticipate the Haldane and the village can expect to share $500 in metered parking per weekend day. So like on a Saturday, $500, or Sunday, $500. And that might be low. I really don't know how to gauge that. If people don't come or if it's raining, whatever, that might not happen. But we gross probably $20,000 at the municipal lot. And like I said, it's the same size as this lot. So there's a potential for that. And right now, I believe we charge $1.50 an hour, and we're going to bump that up to at least $3 an hour. So, if we've been averaging 20, we have the potential of making $60,000 down there, or probably $40,000 or more. So this could be the same with Haldane. I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, but possibility and something to think about. The partnership could provide Haldane and the additional revenue, and with very little effort. So I think I'm not a good salesman. I'm not at all, probably the worst in the world. I'd probably convince people not to buy something at the end of my sales pitch. But what I see is there's the opportunity to make some money from what's happening already. The lots being filled, our lots are being filled in a number of areas. Like Mayor's Park, we don't have any metered parking there. They're filled all the time and to no benefit to us. So if people are coming, visitors coming here, I think we can provide parking and maintain lots, and we can benefit from it. So hopefully you guys consider it. I think also, and I had mentioned in my original communications with Phil that you could also probably during the fall use the lot below the cafeteria for like either the PTA or for the senior class or for whatever one, if they ran that and you wouldn't need metering or whatever, and you could just charge $20 a day probably, have someone down the bottom and a couple people up top, organizing. So you guys have space and the opportunity, you could, I think it's there. I think you should take advantage of it. It's not a huge amount of money, but if you get $10,000 out of it, that's big for our budget. Or you can maintain lots, put up fences, and do painting, whatever. So I think it's well worth it. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hopefully I didn't take up too much of your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Let me just remind the board that we're just here this isn't like going into too much detail with questions or anything for Dave, but we're just here to kind of get a litmus test, I guess, from us if we want Phil to move forward with it. But if anyone has any general questions for Mayor Morandi, I'm sure he'd be willing to take them. So.
I do have a general question. So in the parking committee meeting that I saw the video of, there's a lot of things that are different, but the one thing that they said that is significantly different is that they said that was going to be a free parking lot, and they were going to encourage Main Street residents and merchants to park up there. Is that still on the table?
Park where?
At the Haldane 90 field.
No, the free parking would be in the area.
Dave, can you use the microphone just so the audio
Hearing's
picture?
not great.
I understand.
The free parking for merchants and employees, and would be at Kemble Avenue. There's a stretch there that we paved a section for Phillipstown when they were using the old VFW, and there's a section that's also paved on the boulevard. So those areas are one section. The lot at the Metro North, that would be free. And we try to, encourage people to use that. And then there's a space at the Highway Department property that right now has a huge mound of debris on it that we were trying to get that out of there and level that and use that also as a space for free parking for Main Street and for merchants. But the Haldane lot, no, I don't think that was mentioned that way. If it is, that's incorrect.
That's incorrect, okay.
So yeah, those are the only free areas that we were talking about. And we were talking about metering Mayor's Park, and Haldane if possible, and Main Street. And there's a few parking spots on each street on the ends closest to Main Street that wouldn't affect the resident parking there. There's some spots where there's 3 or 4 spaces before a house or a driveway. Those spaces also will be metered, but they won't be free.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
Does anyone have any general impressions that they'd like to share with Dr. Benante?
I think that I think it's good, let's take a look at it, figure it out. I don't think any big issue. The only one question I have is coordination on game days or event type
That's
stuff.
our biggest concern.
Yeah, it's I'm sure we can figure it. Generally, we can probably figure out most of the stuff that happens, but then somebody's got to be, somebody's going to be coordinating here, and B, somebody's going to be coordinating there. Unless somebody here has access to.
Right.
And Little League uses those fields too.
They do. And, in speaking with Dave about it, and again, I've been here on the weekend, so I've seen what's going on. I think the spirit of it is to ensure that residents have access to parking and don't have to pay for parking, while at the same time monetizing those who are coming from other areas to make use of our community in some way. I think that's going to be, I don't think there's any plan for coordinating that right now. Folks just know either where to park or deal with it. So I don't know if this is going to help necessarily manage gaining community members. Little League's a great example of closer access to the field. Parking's going to be set up on a weekend, and folks can either pay or the spots will already be taken. I don't see how that's necessarily different than what they may be experiencing right now. The opportunity is that if we identify that area for municipal parking or for parking use, we could draw revenue on it, as opposed to, as Dave shared in that picture, it's clear that the lot's being utilized on the weekends and in other key areas. So maybe an opportunity there to draw in some additional revenue for the school, since people are using it already. My sense is the folks who, who are either going to our own athletic events or maybe accessing Little League, if they can't get a spot, they park on our campus and they walk down.
I'm curious to know about the flexibility. I mean, if we have a, village residency permit parking, why there isn't a Haldane community?
Right.
Obviously we wouldn't have permit parking for everybody in Phillipstown.
Right.
But it seems to me that there should be some flexibility for that, so that we don't have to do the constant negotiation and logistical navigation with calendars and things like that. But I'd be interested to know about the flexibility to implement something like that.
I like that. That's why part of the reason why getting a group together who are in that area more frequently, obviously through athletics, community members who come to use that space, I think is important, because they all have a better sense of the temperature, if you will, among their friends or family members or
What their needs are.
neighbors and what those needs are. But my concern, and this is why I would need to talk with Dave more about it, is for our staff on the calendar maintenance and whatnot. What does the management of that look like? Sometimes that becomes a full-time job in and of itself, and I think it's a potential good thing for us and for our community, but not if it's taking up, if it's $10,000 of revenue, but it's half a position. It's not really to manage, then it's not really $10,000 for us. Obviously, there's a cost.
The only thing I can see, I also think you should continue the conversation. So I don't know, maybe this is a little too tangential, but if people are coming from outside of the community and parking there all the time anyway, then we don't have access to that
Right.
lot. It's not like
Right.
not pursuing this is reserving those spaces for Haldane families or local families when, wanting to go to the park. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, cost benefit, kind of figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that there are plenty of details to work out. It sounds like Dr. Benante is aware of what those details are, so is Mayor Morandi. But, I think any opportunity that Haldane has to work collaboratively with the village is an opportunity to explore. And I think if there's an opportunity to see more revenue, then that's something we should explore. So I'm all for the conversation continuing, as Dr. Benante suggested, with a committee of stakeholders that know much more than I do, certainly, about the needs of that lot.
Jen, could I be so bold as to see if there's a board member that would be interested in?
I will
I
raise
don't
my
know
hand.
if there is, but
Margaret, you're only going to be
Well, but this is what I do for a living, so I'm happy to do this.
okay, sure.
I'm happy to do this even after my
she could
board is
continue.
done.
I would be comfortable with
Excellent.
Margaret continuing as like a board representative, even if she was no longer on the board.
This is what I do for the Village of Bronxville. I manage all of the parking.
I feel like she would have the board's best interest at heart,
That's
as well as the
fantastic.
expertise
That's fantastic.
and the
Great.
interest.
Thank you,
So, thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
And it sounds like you have our nod of
Yes.
move
I'll
forward.
reach out to some other groups just to get their interest, and then I'll coordinate with Margaret for meeting with the village and Park Mobile.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any communication from the public? No. Information reports are here for everyone's review. Consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
These are minutes from our April 20th meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Consent agenda financial. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
And I just wanted to congratulate Miss Johanna Rupp, who's expressed her intent to retire at the end of the school year. And Johanna, haven't had the longest time to work with, especially in light of COVID, but I've had been able to share some time with her in her classrooms and see her interacting with our youngest learners. And it's obviously, we're very happy for her. It's bittersweet. I just want to congratulate her.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
New business, the CSE, CPSE recommendations. Ms. Platt?
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the recommendations of the Committees on Special Education and Preschool Special Education as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The district website transparency audit. I will turn this over to Dr. Benante or Ann if they'd like to share anything.
Just mention, we spoke at a previous meeting about the findings of the school website transparency audit. As you may recall, the findings were not extensive. They were mostly technical in nature, most of which we were able to fix right away or correct right away. However, there is a formal process for responding to an audit in the development of a corrective action plan as a formal response from the district. So you will see that outlined in your file attachments. Once the board approves this, it will be posted on our district website. And it will also be sent to the state comptroller's office as well as the state education department. So we're looking to finalize this with your approval.
Any discussion? Okay. Oh, we're not voting. We're just discussing. Okay. Thank you. The Westchester Putnam School Boards Association slate of officers and their budget. Ms. Platt.
I'm going to assume that you'll say yes, so I'll read the resolution like that, and then we can.
Yes. Is anybody planning on saying no? Okay.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Education casts a yes vote for the 2021-2022 Westchester Putnam School Boards Association Nominating Committee slate of officers and directors, and a yes vote to ratify the 2021-2022 Westchester Putnam School Boards Association budget.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll just share that, let's see, what can I share? There are 4 Board of Directors being nominated that we are voting yes to potentially. One's from Harrison, one's from Peekskill, one's from Brewster, and one is from Pleasantville. And yeah, that's all I have to share. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, the NYSBA Area 10 Director, Ms. Platt.
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby nominates Peggy Zugaba for the NYSBA Area 10 Director for 2022-2023.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Peggy Zigaby has been our Area 10 Director for quite a long time. And as far as I can tell, she's done a fantastic job. And she reports to Westchester Putnam at every single one of our meetings, and she sits through the entire meeting and then gives a report and presents to us at the end of the meeting with absolute enthusiasm, which I always really appreciate, that she has sat through the entire meeting and then actually reports to us. So we thank her for her service, and yeah, so thank you to Peggy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any communication from the public? Any board reflections to share?
I have 2 things. One, I just wanted to once again acknowledge and congratulate Haldane Drama for presenting, 3 plays, 2,500 years old, and pulling off something that even professional companies don't have the capacity to do right now, like actually making theater inside of a space and inviting the people that love them to come and see it, and they did a wonderful job with it. And the other thing I want to say, as many of you know, I have a child who's still virtual, and in spite of mom and dad's, encouragement, coming back to school has been problematized because of his reluctance to wear a mask. He has a really difficult time with textures and a variety of things. And I just wanted to say that this last week we came to campus, and he had his mask around his ears, and we had a social distance moment at recess time, and as he said, all my teachers were there. Everyone who's ever taught me was there, and he had a really great 35-minute time on campus and saw his best friends, and everybody came up and said hello to him, and he just sort of fell right back into what it is to be with other people on a regular basis, and it was really encouraging for us. It was really encouraging for him. And the staff that showed up made a huge impact on us and also on his friends, and I'm deeply grateful for it. And just felt like it was important to put it out there. We're going to do it again this week, and our hope is, he will slowly be incentivized to just raise that mask 2.5 inches, and then be able to spend a little bit more time on campus as we head towards the end of the year. But it was a big day for us, and a big moment for his classmates and for Mr. Paparo and Ms. Kilbert. So just want to share that.
Thank you. Dr. Benante, do you have anything to share?
No, I do not, Jen.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.